You don't hear me, you don't see me, your head is somewhere else. Do you remember me? Do you remember me? Searching in your memories. Distant sound that once was bright and loud, just keep fading. Do you remember me? Do you remember me?
I've spent months with this lens and I keep coming back to the idea of worth. The Fujifilm XF33 f1.4 packs a ton of value, but it also competes in one of the most crowded spaces for the Fujifilm X mount. You have the 35-1.4, the 35f2, and the often and rightfully ignored XE35f2, and even the worthy competitor in Viltrox with their 33 f1.4. So however great this new lens from Fujifilm may be, you have to frame it within its marginal improvement over its peers, what you're hoping to create, and how often you'll be capturing. And while this framing should be used for any considerable purchase, it becomes noticeably more valuable when the product in question has a lot of competition. I've already made a couple of videos with my early thoughts on comparing this to the OG 35mm f1.4. With this video, I want to paint a more definitive picture of what this lens brings to the table. We use this lens for photo and video across several shoots at home, outdoor candid, studio work, and even the streets of Colombia. And while I've said quite a bit along the way, I've come to the conclusion that this may be the most polarizing lens introduced to the X-mount family.
But God might be on vacation, and the promised land ain't never promised. My baby telling me to be patient, but the devil always working overnight, my darling.
This XF33 reinforces the design language that Fujifilm has ushered in for their modern lenses. The hopes of a clutch focusing mechanism and distance scale are all but eliminated, and if you're wondering why, that's because most consumers simply don't care for them. Instead, you have a new line of primes that are considerably more compact than their full-frame counterparts and are produced in a manner that's built for the future. That is to say that this XF33 f1.4, along with the new 18 and soon to be released 23, pack enough specialized elements to resolve the higher resolution sensors that are coming in the next generation of Fujifilm cameras. Being well under 400 grams with weather sealing and about half the size of a can of pop, this new prime reinforces the value proposition of being a Fujifilm user: compact quality. And if we're being honest, it's a feat that's only rivaled by Leica, which is why I think we should refer to these new line of Fuji primes, the 18-1.4, 23-1.4, 33-1.4, as the Fuji Lenses. By the way, that sound you're hearing are German lawyers knocking on my door. This XF33 is a lens that feels at home when it's mounted in front of an X Pro 3, X-T4, and even an XS10. The weight does shift the center of gravity forward, but not uncomfortably like the 50mm 1.0. If you have this on your camera and you plan on spending hours outdoors with it, it won't ever feel like a burden. The aperture ring on this lens is easy to reach, and while it doesn't have too much resistance to it, this is not something that you'll accidentally knock out of place. There's also the inclusion of an aperture lock that should be valuable to a group of shooters as well. This is not something that I use. I just don't photograph this way where I let the camera decide the aperture or I let the command dial use it to control the aperture. For those of you that do, you'll love this feature. You have to press the button to engage and disengage, meaning that you'll never accidentally move from an auto or command mode to F16. The focus ring is wide enough to find easily, smooth enough to pull accurately, and doesn't seem to falter in any way. If you want to use this in conjunction with autofocus to make subtle adjustments, you can, and you'll have a high degree of accuracy with it. However, like many Fujifilm lenses, you can't give this thing an emphatic twist and zone focus like you would with a proper manual lens. The filter size of 58, which is also a feature shared by the new 23-1.4, feels like the sweet spot for premium compact lenses, but you may opt to adapt this to a larger size like 62 or 67 to make any filters you invest in a bit more versatile. Overall, when it comes to the build quality of this XF33mm f1.4, you feel like you're getting something that's classy and meant to travel the world. We took this thing across varying environments and never felt like a subpar experience was on hand. If you're planning on getting this lens or still waiting for it to arrive at your doorstep, you'll be happy to know that it will feel like a product that's worth the price of entry. Now, let's talk about something far more fascinating, and that is the image quality. Time Time and time again, the image quality and consistency of this lens impressed me in the field, where the sharpness at wider apertures was appreciated. You can work the entire aperture range knowing that you will capture the details you need to make a great shot. Overall, images have more of a neutral color to them and a healthy amount of contrast compared to something like the 35-1.4. Using this on a camera with modern Fujifilm sensors will lead to great files where your technical ability is the only true bottleneck. When I fed this lens all the light it needed in a controlled environment, it led to commercial quality pictures that would work in a post or a poster. Bringing this outdoors into natural light, I would just have to raise my awareness as a photographer just a little bit and I could expect the same results. However, the power of a lens like this comes from the fact that even an average photographer can create impactful content because of how robust this thing is. While I'll continue to remind you that shooting portraits at f1.4 is a terrible way to move your craft forward, it's not without its benefits. If you can compose it just right, you'll have shots that are blown out in a beautiful way and exceptionally sharp where it needs to be. This creates a feedback loop that'll help propel your craft forward, and that, ladies and gentlemen, is what makes an $800 lens like this feel invaluable at times. Now, I want to be careful because I'm not saying that this is for everyone, and more on this later, but there are pockets of value that you'll experience from this lens across different environments that few, if any, other lens for this mount can compete with. Now, what about video? Well, if you shoot a bit tighter and feel at home with this perspective, you'll love the upgrade that this lens brings to the table. The upgraded linear motor means that you can rely on this lens to focus accurately and quickly. In fact, you may even elect to slow down the focusing to feel a bit more natural in the field. Even if you're a classical filmmaker that pulls focus manually, you'll have plenty to appreciate with the image quality. Once again, the end result feels healthy, sharp, and true to life. Out of focus areas are balanced and predictable, which is arguably more critical to video shooters. Now, compound all these benefits with the fact that this is a compact lens in a weather-sealed body, and this XF33 really distances itself from the competition. Over the months, I've really tried to hone in on how this lens can be noticeably better, and the truth is, there isn't a significant way to do that without incurring much higher costs. The output from this product is simply phenomenal, and it won't have you wanting more, whatever the that means. On either side of the photo-video conversation, this XF33 absolutely delivers in a manner that enthusiasts and professionals will appreciate. So I'm left with one thought. Fujifilm should seriously consider making a new specialized line of lenses that compete in a higher bracket. I would love to see this exact lens manufactured in a body that incorporates a proper distance scale for accurate focus pulls. Hell, I'll even go as far as saying that Fujifilm should create a line of manual focus lenses that serve a smaller but more passionate market who are willing to invest in multiple specialty lenses for cameras like the X Pro 3. I mean, let's be honest, it's a little embarrassing that this sort of zone manual focusing experience is feeling best when you adapt a Leica lens on a Fujifilm camera, a reality that isn't possible for most Fuji shooters. Though a product line like this may not sell nearly as many lenses as traditional autofocus counterparts, there's no denying that there's an excitement there, and traditional microeconomics can rattle out a price that makes sense. So yeah, there's my annual plea to Fujifilm to make my dream street photography lenses. Photography isn't a hobby for me. It's work, but work I enjoy, and I've been lucky enough to have it take me all over the world, win awards, earn gallery spots, feature on covers, and most importantly, meet incredible humans. I say this explicitly because there's a plethora of individuals that over-prioritize things like sharpness charts and chromatic aberration. While these things can be important, it has to come second to your abilities as a creator. I'm a photographer that happens to be on YouTube, and when I test a new camera or lens, I'm looking at how it can make someone better as a creator, not sound better on YouTube. I say all of this to preface that while this lens is an incredible product, it is also deceptive. I've really enjoyed my time using this across multiple projects, but I can't convince myself that this is a must-have product for most people. I think you'd be better suited investing in the XF35mm f1.4, where that lens has noticeable character to bring intrigue to your photography. At $800 US, this XF33 is not inexpensive, and if the Viltrox 33 can bring 3/4 of the value at 1/3 the price, this is probably a better investment for most hobbyists. My concern is that people will look at these marginal differences that make the XF33 technically better and write off solutions that would be plenty enough for their workflow. If you're capturing a lot of video in the 50mm equivalent focal length, photographing for clients often in the 50mm equivalent focal length, or upgrading your camera body every 2 years and you love, you guessed it, the 50mm equivalent focal length, this new 33 Fujinon deserves a spot in your kit. It brings real value that you will come to appreciate. However, you have to tick at least 2 of these 3 boxes to justify that $800 US price tag. Personally, this is not a focal length that I reach for first, and when I do, it's predominantly for photography. If that describes you, I think you can rest easy knowing that the $600 XF35 f1.4 is still on the market, ready and waiting. Having an extended amount of time with this XF33 f1.4 has been incredibly fun and not something I take for granted. It's easy to champion how great this product is because it's pretty f***ing great. But even in all that time, across all those shoots, I couldn't get to the point where I felt like this had to be a part of my collection. Like I mentioned several different ways earlier in this video and in prior videos, the glass you find here is exceptional. It's just that the field in which this lens competes in is so damn competitive. And I don't think that I'm in the minority when I say that with respect to photography, the XF35 is just more fun. In any case, this is not a bad problem for Fujifilm or consumers because choice is a great thing to have. Now, I've elaborated on how I feel and where I stand, but I'd love to hear what you think. So let's continue this conversation in the comments below. Is this a lens that you're adding to your wish list or skipping for now? I'd love to see what you have to say. Oh, and if you made it this far, there might be a chance that you're part of the 75% of people that enjoy these videos but not subscribed. And well, here's me explicitly asking you to help support this channel. Every new subscriber helps us in reaching new people and improving our content. And look, I just welcomed another son to this world and daddy needs that diaper money.